morning, everyone. My name is Emily, and I'm our Director of Programs for 11th grade here at Attollo Prep. And welcome back to the first PD series of the new year. I know, how exciting. We started filming these about a year ago, too, so this is really exciting to be back.
I watched some of your back catalog.
I love. Well, today I have Heather Valudes, who is the President and CEO of Lancaster Chamber. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. I said I've done podcasts, but not with this live audience feel, so this is fun.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Just to kick us off, would you share a little bit about where you are from and what were some of your hobbies growing up?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised here in Lancaster County. I lived out in Paradise Township for most of my life. And so I went to Pequea Valley High School. I actually went away for college then and came back and bought a house in Paradise Township. So I lived about 1.5 miles away from my parents my whole life. And then I just moved to Lampeter, Strasburg in April. So this is like a big change for my life. My husband was also a Pequea Valley grad. We went to high school together. So a lot of life and root and kind of richness here in Lancaster for us. But growing up, I mean, my school was really small. I graduated with 135 kids in our high school.
Wow.
And so your activities were pretty rural, though. I mean, we were 25 minutes from basically anything other than like grocery stores, and it took you 25 minutes to get to the mall or anything like that. And so I played sports. I wasn't particularly good at them. So then I tried to always transition into managing sports. So I was like the field hockey manager. And I kind of took that route so I could be in the activities without doing the physicality of the activity.
That's what I like, being involved without having to like do the work that makes you look sweaty. But
Right.
Yeah, very nice. Well, today we actually have some scholars of ours in the room. So for those who may not be familiar, what exactly is a Chamber of Commerce? And what is Lancaster's Chamber's role in like our community and how it supports businesses, nonprofits, etc.?
Yeah, sure. So a Chamber of Commerce is really an organization that's comprised of businesses or employers in the community. So for our chamber, we have about 1,400 members. Those range from the largest employers in Lancaster County that might have 10,000 employees to the smallest sole proprietorships in Lancaster County where they have one employee and it's themselves. And then it's kind of everything in between. Chambers also often have nonprofit organizations as a part of their membership. Government entities are a part of their membership. And so it represents a pretty wide swath of types of industry. For our chamber, we have representation from every industry that is here in Lancaster County as a business. And so chambers are really that is the basis of what they are. It's this organization bringing together those businesses with intention and purpose. And so some of that is about how do we create networking opportunities and connections. Sometimes it's about offering professional development, resources. And then the other key thing that our chamber does that not every chamber does, because each chamber is different. And so ours does a lot of pro-business advocacy as well. So looking at policies that are going to impact employers and businesses. And I'll talk about that in a little bit because I think our angle sometimes looks different than what people think it is.
Yeah.
But that's really what it is. It's kind of bringing together the business community and then giving opportunities for them to connect and that type of thing.
So a lot of oversight and management of different parts, which makes a lot of sense given that was your goal in high school, managing different sports.
Sure, it tracks now.
Yeah. So your career is heavily focused on advocacy and government affairs. What first drew you to this type of work?
So both of my parents were civically engaged when I was younger. I would say they weren't elected officials. They weren't doing that piece of it. But my mom was the township secretary and treasurer for Paradise Township. My dad was really involved with some of our local like recreation boards and things like that. And so I saw this civic engagement happening from my parents in kind of this way where like what are the rooms where things are being talked about that are going to impact us at this really local level. I think that's what drew me to it a little bit, was the idea that there are decisions being made in these local spaces. And so when I went to college, I actually went in undecided and then quickly kind of honed in on, okay, I actually think I do want to pursue a political science degree. And then I got hooked up with an internship that really started to help me see what can this look like in practice and that part of it. But I do think it was that early engagement and seeing my parents play a role in what was happening in our community. And just for like basic living stuff, right? How are we going to beautify our park? I mean, that's what my dad was doing on the rec commission. But it was an interesting way to kind of see what engagement looks like. And I think that was the basis for me getting engaged in it.
I really appreciate that you talked a little bit about going into college undecided. As a college access program, we often encourage our students to really go for what would be the best fit, even if you don't know what you're studying. So like the best fit being, where can I see myself possibly growing and learning and figuring out what I want to do. And I know that that can be a really scary thing for students. So it's amazing to have you be here and talk about how you went in undecided and still were able to make history as the first female president and CEO of the Lancaster Chamber in over 2 decades, which is insane. So how did that milestone feel personally and professionally? And what does it mean to you as a leader and representative of Lancaster business community?
Yeah. So when I became our president, we were celebrating our 150th year as a chamber. So we've been around for a long, long time. And they had never had a female lead the organization in the history of that chamber. And so, you know, I think at the time I actually wasn't focused on it much. It wasn't kind of at the forefront. I had been at the chamber 11 years already at that point, and so it just wasn't, I had really worked to establish myself in this community and in the work that we were doing and in the role that I was serving in the organization. And so it wasn't kind of this top of mind factor. It was interesting then as I got to the kind of end of the process, because it was a pretty intensive process to be named for that. They did a national search and you're up against candidates from across the country. And so then to go through that whole process and be named on the other side of it, people would often ask me that, like, how does it feel to be the first woman? And I was like, I hadn't even really like leaned into that part or thought about that part as a part of the process. I think I've been able to reflect on it differently now, over 3 years into it. And it really has, and I think I hear this from our staff and from people in the community, the way that we lead out probably feels different today. And I think there is something to be said for the way kind of women look at some of the issues and the way you lead teams. And I think certainly for our team of people there, leadership feels different at times when it's coming from women. And that's no offense to men. And I don't mean it that way. I just think it is something that is felt for our team. And I have twin 12-year-old daughters. So there's also a lot of pride in saying to them, like, you can do this. You can kind of like, you can be in a space, you can hold space, and then you can kind of really own it once you're in it. And so I've taken a lot of pride in that over time that I hadn't quite thought about going into it.
I love that so much. We use a phrase here, you cannot be what you cannot see. And so I'm curious, thinking back to when you were serving as the advocacy director, when did you make the decision that you were like, wait, I kind of want to go up for this? Like, I do actually want to go up against candidates from around the country.
Yeah, so I was named in 2022, so we had kind of come out of COVID as much as you were out of it at that point. I mean, it still felt like it could be around the corner at any moment. And so the great thing about the advocacy job and that public policy work in that role was I had constant opportunities to kind of mold the role and really think about how I wanted to grow it and how I wanted to build it out. I was kind of like a little shop of one within the chamber. And so I had a lot of opportunities to build it in a way that felt like, oh, this is something we're hearing about in the community. And so what can we do to explore that? And I would kind of go do that. And I had started to take on some of our team over time just because of natural attrition within the organization and those types of things. And so Tom was my predecessor. He had been there 22 years. We had conversations along the way. So I had a little bit of insight into, hey, like I'm probably going to retire at this point. And I think by that, I was pretty well into the idea that, okay, I am going to go for this. When he makes that choice, I'm going to go down this path and see how it goes. What I was certain about, even in that moment, though, was if I didn't get it, there are lots of great leaders, and I thought I would still be fine leading from the seat that I was in. And so I had a real comfort about that at that moment. And I don't know, I think different points in your career that doesn't feel as comfortable to say, but at that point, I was at a place of saying, I know I do good work here, and I know that it's impactful work for this community. And so if there's the right leader above me still, I will be comfortable with that, and I look forward to that. But I also really want this. And so then I kind of dug my heels in and got a little grittier about what did it look like for me to pursue that. But I think two things can be true at one time as it relates to kind of how I was looking at that career trajectory.
Yeah. So keeping the mindset of regardless of where I go and what role, if I stay or move upwards, I can still keep making an impact. I feel like that's what stood out to me a little bit. Were there any other skills or additional mindsets that you kept when making this transition?
I'm really focused on what the organization feels like for the team of people that we lead. I was sitting in a role that did have a leadership component to it. And I think any transition when you've had a long-time leader can be hard for staff. It can also be different for the community that you're serving. And so that was kind of a key piece too, was trying to create stability for everybody along the way. So when I was considering it, there were certainly pieces around what does it look like to kind of take what we do in this community today, and how would I look at that differently or grow that? But there's still value in the stability of being an organization that's served here for 150 years. And so how do you do that well? Having over a decade of experience with them helped. And so I think there were a lot of factors, and look, timing was real. My kids were 9 at the time, and so there's also a piece of I'm managing twin 9-year-old girls where I know life is going to look different as they transition into middle school. Is now the moment for our family? That was a whole piece of the question too. But we talked through that. So there were considerations, and then it's kind of talking to the people that I trust to help me think through that, to say, okay, you're ready and you have supports as you're going to need them to kind of go through process, but even on the other side of it.
I love that you brought up the team of people that you trust. Who is your support system? Who is this team that you're referencing? It sounds like there's a bit of a familial component, but also talking to your predecessor to better understand the role. And I think that's often missed as well in leadership is realizing that it's not just you, even if you're the center of attention in times. So who do you typically lean on for support in making decisions like this?
Yeah, there's a lot of great women leading in this community too. And so we get together. If you go to a restaurant every once in a while, you might see our little posse there. And so that's certainly a support network as a group, but then also kind of in a one-on-one sense. My board chair this year is Vanessa Filber, and so her and I are very close. And we've been close for years. So that helps because she kind of came before me in this space of being a woman leading in the role. And so that's been really helpful to me. I had a coach for a little while, and that was really helpful to kind of bounce things with her and think about. And oftentimes we weren't talking about the actual work. You're kind of talking about how are you processing the work and how are you processing through it. And so doing a lot of that with her. And then I'm fortunate to be really involved with our state level chamber and then chambers at a national level too. And that is an incredible support network for me personally. I have mentors and friends that are all over the country doing this work. So they're also experiencing things and running up against things in their community and issues in their community. And I get to call them and be like, hey, this happened today and I've never had this happen before, but I know it's happened to you. So can we talk through that a little bit? And that's a great network to have created.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. So kind of thinking back to not just the fact that you oversee a team of people, but you oversee a lot of different initiatives from advocacy events and strategic planning. How do you think about setting your priorities for an organization when you have so many different stakeholders and so much potential impact within your community?
It is a real conundrum at times. So as a chamber, we do lead out, like I said, on the pro-business policy. We have a workforce agenda. We're on like 25 different coalitions where we have representation on those coalitions. And then we have 150 events and programs a year. So there is a lot happening for our staff and team. And prioritization is kind of a key piece of that. For me, I think everything always comes back to our strategic plan. And so there is a piece that says, what is our guiding document? What are the priorities we've laid out in that? And then I think the second kind of component of that is understanding what is impacting our business community. So each year we take a pretty deep dive into what are the trends or the issues that we anticipate that will be kind of top for business. And then how do you look at the work that we're doing? Or for us, when you have 150 events and programs, it's like we have these pockets and slots. So now how do you take these trends and put it into the calendar that you know exists? And how do you kind of prioritize what you're hearing from business in a moment and be reactionary into the calendar of things we already have going? So there's a piece that's like that, where it's constantly thinking about what's actually impacting those we serve to. For me personally, I just have a lot of strategies around how I prioritize and kind of tick things off the list. I have like a little scheduler that I literally put what are my top 3 tasks that I have to get done today, and then what's more of a project, and I just kind of work it back and forth like all the time.
I'm always looking for new skills.
This one has worked really well. I'm happy to share a link. Okay. But it is a great way to just kind of what's the task, what's the ongoing project, and it keeps you pretty tight on what you feel like you got to get done for a day. And then it changes a lot for me because the day becomes like, oh, run over here or go do this or whatever it might be. So, but prioritization, I mean, it is key for us. And it's what keeps the whole team kind of moving in the same direction too, is having joint priorities and having that joint North Star of our strategic plan. Because everybody can use it as that document they look to and say, does this fit it? Does it not? If it doesn't, we're going to kind of keep moving from it.
Is what I'm doing in line with, yep, that makes a lot of sense. And I really appreciate that you're constantly evaluating how you're doing, and not just thinking about, okay, if we're doing this event this exact time next year, how can we make it better? But you're also taking the feedback and applying it to the events that you said were later on your calendar, which I think is a really important skill that is difficult to master, but nonetheless very important. I also want to recognize again, like we do have students here, so I'm curious, as someone who's worked really closely with government affairs and advocacy, what's one thing you think every young citizen should understand about civic engagement, and why does it matter?
So I love that one. Being a political science major and that piece of it, I love civic engagement. I think at its core, it's so much... Politics is tough right now. It's a rough landscape, I think, for anybody to feel like they can feel heard or make an impact in a different way. There's a lot moving all the time. But it's back to that piece that I talked about with my dad. The idea that like you can make it can be impactful to get engaged in a way that feels small. And that's actually where a lot of times it starts. So the idea of finding the thing that, oh, this issue matters to me. Is there a coalition working on this locally? Is there a way that I can engage in the issue and then kind of push it forward from there? And that opens up the opportunity to see it from like, okay, is my work going to be in advocating for some type of policy, or is it going to be in helping them market the message, or is it going to be in helping to plan the event? That's where then you get to kind of figure out how your skill sets can apply to the issue. So I think for me, it's like that, the starting small concept in some ways, like find the thing that matters to you and then find the people working on it and get engaged in that work in that way.
Yes. Yes.
Explore it with me. I'm curious what your question is. Okay,
so I'm thinking back to when I was a senior in high school, which is the age of our students who are here today. And I feel like there was still this fear of, will I actually be able to make an impact? Especially, my birthday's in May, so I didn't turn 18 until the end of my senior year.
Yeah.
So like, do I really have a voice if I can't vote? Like all these little, like all the little signs in your head, and that could just be my anxiety speaking. But yes, I love the idea of breaking down, thinking about, okay, what really is important to me, but then how can we still encourage our young citizens to really like take that step and leap almost to still get involved? Yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I mean, I think it is, I think your scholars are probably a little more well prepared for this, because part of it is finding the network that can connect you in with somebody. And so if there's something that matters to you, talk to somebody else. It can feel scary. You're not going to just be like, oh, housing matters to me. There's the Coalition for Sustainable Housing. Let me just like reach out to them and show up at a meeting. That's going to feel way more intimidating than kind of thinking about, oh, housing matters to me. Let me talk to somebody I'm connected with, get some insight from them on where is that work happening. And then maybe they're making that like warm introduction to somebody who's leading or leaning into the space. And so it's kind of using that network that you can get connected to help you with that warm handoff or that inroad. Or if you know somebody that's already engaged in the work, hey, can I come along with you to X, Y, and Z? There's a part of like, that can feel intimidating to do that ask, but at least it doesn't feel like I'm just showing up in a space and people will be wondering why I'm here or who I am in the mix. It's kind of coming alongside somebody. And look, if you ever need connected to anything, I'm happy to do that piece of it.
That is something that's
right. Always
generous.
Happy to do that piece.
No, that's awesome. And I appreciate you breaking it down to such a simple level. I've definitely been in situations before where I'm like, oh, should I even reach out and ask for help? And then I am almost like reminded that if someone were to ask me, I would happily like bring them along. And so just putting my trust and faith that if I'd be willing to do it, someone would be willing to do it for me as well.
And I think as like adults in this space, there is at least for me, there's kind of a joy when you have somebody who's a junior or senior in high school reach out and say, hey, I'd like to know more about this, or I'd like to get connected to this. I think in a lot of ways, that's a really fun moment for me. We get that as general inquiries that come in through the chamber for things. And it's always like, oh, that's so cool that they have this idea that they're trying to advance. Let's get them connected to X, Y, Z. That's a core part of how I think about my work, but it's extra delightful maybe when it's a young person and you get to actually feel like that's kind of impacting how they're looking into the future as well.
That's awesome. Now I recognize that while young people are sometimes often like the unheard, there are still like many different voices that are sometimes missed. So thinking about community engagement and economic development and how those really require building trust across different sectors. What approaches or practices do you use to make sure that community voices, especially those that are unheard, are included in conversations about Lancaster's future?
Yeah, so I think this is just kind of a key part of how you think about approach and ensuring that there are representative voices at a table when you're having a conversation about something. So our process, when I think about our strategic planning process, it was a year long. And so we had a strategic planning committee that was represented from members of the chamber. And that process, though, when it would go up, down, sideways from that group all the time. And so there were times where we would say, okay, we want the young professionals group to maybe react to this specific part of the work that we're thinking about doing. We want advocacy committee involved in this part of the work. Staff, we want you to actively review in this space. And so as we were developing that plan, it was kind of bouncing around pretty regularly to different groups that, like our young professional advisory group, they're not necessarily sitting in the well, there was one of them actually that was in the strategic planning committee, but the whole group isn't there, right? But how do you make sure that the plan feels like it's going to resonate with that set of individuals as well? And so we would kind of bounce aspects of the plan to different places to make sure that it felt like it was going to resonate with them and that their input was being put into it. Our staff, I would say, greatly appreciated that, probably more than anybody else along the way, because I think at times it can feel like strategic plans happen to you versus feeling like you're creating them with others. And so for our team, that was really a key part of the process, was like, let's make sure. And they're at different tables. They're hearing different things. They're building trust with different people along the way. So that's then kind of adding to the plan in that way. I do think as a community, it's something we have to be intentional about. Like when you look at any group that's getting together to talk about an issue, it's really hard to do that if you don't have the people impacted by the issue at the table. And so to lead well, you have to be intentional about kind of who you're bringing to the table and that representation within it.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Want to be mindful of the time and making sure that our audience can still ask some questions. So I'll leave you with this before opening it up. Every leader has faced challenges, pivots, or moments of uncertainty. Is there a time in your career where you may have doubted your path? And if so, what helped you push through and grow from that experience?
Yeah, I mean,
you're like, yeah, obviously.
I feel like it's, to your point, everybody faces it. Like it's such a natural part. Whether you're sitting in the leadership seat or kind of any seat that you're sitting in, I think you end up in these spaces of like, do I even know what I'm doing? I've gotten really, really comfortable, probably more comfortable with it in the past 3 years than ever in my life, saying, I don't know the answer to that, but I know how to find out the answer. I know how to do the research. I know who to connect to. I know how I'm going to go about kind of figuring out my answer to it. And so I do wish I had been more comfortable with that sooner, because I think it took a variety of scenarios that I hadn't quite anticipated to be like, I don't know how I'm going to address this. So I'm going to call 5 people that I think might have a little more insight and kind of help me understand how they would address it, so then I can think about that. So I would say that's like how I overcome it, is the idea of it's okay to not know it. Everybody doesn't know something, no matter how much they can like grandstand about it. There's something they don't know. And but having confidence to say, I do know I can figure it out somehow, though, when I lean into a network of people I have, where I just kind of get creative in my thinking about it. Isn't
that just a trippy phrase? I'm confident in that I don't know.
Right.
And I know where to find the answer.
Yeah.
So thank you.
It comes up routinely now. Like we're doing an assessment of our building at 115, and I don't have a commercial construction background. We're trying to figure out what are the long-term maintenance costs on a whole bunch of stuff. I'm like, I have zero clue how to do this well. Like, this isn't what I really got hired for specifically. But you bring in all the right resources around you, and then that helps kind of figure it out.
Absolutely. Thank you. Questions from the audience? Who wants to kick us off?
Oh my gosh, did I answer everything so well? Everything you've had
I still have more
about
questions,
your whole life, right?
Tarrington.
I have a question then.
Yeah.
So I grew up in this area, sort of went away for a little while, and then have now come back. And I think a value that I really stand by is like the need for people to return home in some capacity. But I think a lot of our high schoolers, when we talk to them about, what they're thinking for the future, so many of them say, get me as far away as possible, and I never want to look back. So I'm really curious from your perspective, as somebody who has spent a lot of time in this area and did ultimately return home, what advice or what would you tell a high schooler who's saying that they want to shut the door on Lancaster and never look back?
So I spend a lot of time thinking about this because we want everyone to boomerang back here. And so a couple years ago, we started exploring this as a chamber, really, thinking about how do you kind of keep people here, or you go off and then you eventually come back. And so we started an initiative called Land in Lancaster, and it's really about placemaking for the community. So land a job, land a place, land a lifestyle. And we're trying to position the community in a way that says, and look, part of this is attracting talent to our area too. People who don't live here and have no connection to here. You're trying to attract them too. And so, but what we've found is that's become great messaging for a lot of other people, young people who are either considering where they're going to college. Lancaster has so much opportunity because we have so many types of business and industry here, because we have so many types of nonprofits here. There are career pathways left, right, and sideways. And I think it's easy to get caught up in the idea that, like if you look at us comparatively to Philadelphia, you're gonna get paid more likely if you're taking a job right outside of Philly or in Philly, something like that. But cost of living here is a little less, so that's like the easy answer to that, right? Is you put it on a cost of living. But the thing we try to focus on is like the pathway and opportunity that exists and the connectedness of this community. I think it's easy to take that for granted when you live in it. And it's actually the thing that oftentimes I think people end up feeling like it's so small. That's why I want to go get somewhere else, is because this is so small and so connected. But there comes a point where that connectedness and that village and that like creating community for yourself becomes one of the greater factors in these choices. And I think Lancaster does that in a way that feels really special for people when they're here as adults. And you can't feel it the same way when it's like what you've been raised in. That's 100% how I felt. Like I went to high school with 140, I graduated with 140 kids. You knew everybody and you knew all their siblings and you knew their parents and you knew everything about them. But then that today is the thing that I'm like, gosh, I love that I know X, Y, and Z people and that I have this connectedness to things. And so there's something special about that that I don't think you necessarily feel in every area. It's not to say you can't find it somewhere else, but I don't think you feel it the same way.
Thank you, Terry.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I just want to ask you about the chamber dinner. It's like the biggest event in Lancaster. Everybody wants to go there. How do you continue to make it better, improve it, and what's the recipe for it being so great?
We just had a planning meeting yesterday, so this is really fresh for me. You know, with the dinner, probably more than any other event that we hold, we really think about what is the full experience. There is a component to the annual dinner that is the speaker, and we know that, and we know that people want to know who it's going to be, and that that's going to kind of, in a lot of people's minds, make or break how they think about the night. But the larger piece to that is that it is 2,000 people in a room who are kind of all trying to move in the same direction. They all want to see this community be successful. They all want to see their workplaces be successful, their people be successful. And so we try to create an experience that feels really positive and uplifting for that concept. And people are genuinely excited to connect with everybody while they're there. But there's a lot of thought and planning that goes into what is the feeling we actually create for people in the room. Like that's the key piece, is thinking about the feeling that we want to create for them while they're there. And then when they leave there, so that they're like, I want to go back and feel that energy again. And so some of that comes from acknowledging our award winners. That's a big piece of the dinner. We have 4 awards that we give out. And so uplifting their stories and kind of how they've made success for themselves or for their employees. All of that becomes really important in that feeling creation. And we talk about that a lot throughout the process. What do we want people to feel when we announce the speaker? What do we want them to feel when they watch a video? What do we want them to feel in the room? The feeling becomes the driver for the experience.
I have so many follow-up questions.
Seb.
Well, first, thank you for being here today. Mine's kind of like a 2-pronged question. I think, and thank you for bringing up like being okay with saying I don't know, but like here is how. And I think especially for us and the students that are here, we all like feel like we need to have the answer to everything. So when we don't know something, we're like freaking out. So I guess the first part is, was there a specific event or experience where you you talked about feeling confident and okay with saying I don't know. So was there a specific time when you were like, wait, I don't feel nervous or scared saying I don't know, or did that just kind of come gradually over time? And then do you have any tips on like how to, you know, be okay with saying I don't know?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think so. Because I was our advocacy director for a period of time, there was always policy that was coming up that there was no way I could possibly know the depths of that policy. Because in a lot of ways, when you're doing policy work at a chamber, you're doing like an inch deep and a mile wide, because you got to know a lot about a lot of issues, and you're not going really deep on one specific issue. So I think for me, it was saying, okay, I can anticipate that committee is going to talk about X, Y, and Z today. I'm going to get myself a little bit of knowledge on what I think they might talk about. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to have an answer to a part of it. I can say, oh yeah, I read about X, Y, and Z, or there's a bill that's been introduced about that, or I tracked that this senator made this comment about it. But let me go find out more information on kind of what you're looking for here. So it gave me enough, there was just enough of an answer to it to feel like I answered something that didn't really give any depth, but I now know what I need to go get depth on. So I think if you can do that little bit of pre-research for situations where it might be like, oh, what might they ask about, or how can I know enough context to feel like I can frame into some part of an answer, that probably helped me through for a long, long time. In terms of the idea that is there a tip for getting comfortable with it, it is probably the practice of doing it. And I don't want to say that you're saying I don't know to everything, because there's lots of things that you will know and that you do know, and then you answer to those. But probably the practice of saying, I'm not sure exactly how I want to approach this right now, or I'm not sure that I know the exact strategy that we would take, and saying that kind of out loud to, again, whether it's somebody you trust or the group of people that are sitting in front of you, of how far you want to go with that. But I do think that practice is a piece of the comfort. You're going to come across stuff all the time that you don't know about. And then 90% of the time, you're going to know what your next step is and what you want to do and what the answer is. And so there's a comfort in also knowing that you know a lot more than you think you know until you're asked or presented with it.
Also sounds like there's a bit, you're never saying I don't know, point blank period. There's always the additional, and I will look for the answer. I don't know at this exact moment, but that doesn't mean I won't know tomorrow, which I think is what I'm hearing from your story.
Yeah, there's definitely like confidence in the curiosity of figuring something out. And so if you're a person that can be curious enough to kind of want to go find the answer and the solution, then that builds the confidence in that too.
Confidence and curiosity. I like it. Any other questions? B?
Do you think they're hearing the hammering?
I'm gonna hope not.
So you talked a little bit about your priority list, and with someone in your role, I'm sure that a lot of people are kind of like asking you for questions or help or coming to you for different things throughout the day. So I'm curious on how you kind of manage and balance like both the things that you need to get done that you're coming in with versus like external factors that are asking for your attention, and how you kind of like process if maybe you're not able to get everything done on your list. Like how do you navigate that, and how do you re-strategize?
This is probably where I need to do the most work in this moment. I struggle to kind of set the day aside, honestly. So I get home from work, I spend time with my family, that type of thing, and then I will go back to that list, because if I feel like there's something on it that I won't stop thinking about it unless I get it off the list, then I'm gonna work to that. And I should probably get better at that, quite honestly. My coworker asked me the other day what my goal for 2026 was, and I said to sleep more, because I don't go to bed until like midnight. Now I'm a night owl, so that's a piece of it. But the day that is a difficult part of it. Like I went into the office even this morning with the idea that I needed to get this one letter of support written, and then I'm going to come up here. and a coworker wanted to talk to me about something. And in that moment, I am going to prioritize that for them, because that's how they're advancing their work. And I know I can kind of return back to the piece that I need to do. It does help me to constantly have my list to refer to. And it's a physical, handwritten list. Because there's something about having to move that physical list with me that makes me mentally note it and pay attention to it. But it's something I think I'm still figuring out. Like, how do I do this in a way that feels healthy and productive in each and every day? My coworkers know that I will prioritize what they or a member need. And so that is a piece that's going to kind of happen first. And then I will come back to a project and kind of look at it and say, okay, I know I have until next Thursday. There's also something about setting deadlines with people. So we live in a culture that you send an email and you want the response back. And so I try to be realistic with people. I try to respond and then say, I won't be able to get to this until next Thursday though. So if that works. If that's not going to work, let me know and we can revisit that. But otherwise, I'll circle back on that next Thursday. And just being really transparent about how I am or am not going to be able to prioritize that, having looked at my upcoming schedule type of thing.
Awesome. We have time for one more question from the audience. Right here.
So piggybacking off of the chamber dinner, how do you personally feel present during that dinner? I know there's obviously like 2,000 people there, a lot of food to serve, lights, camera, action type of thing. How do you remain present during that big dinner?
That's such a good question. Because I'm very nervous. I want to be clear that it's a nerve-wracking evening. There's a lot of moving pieces. By the time we're actually at people coming into this space, we feel pretty good. Like everything's kind of come together. We've sound checked. We've run everything. But I kind of black out when I go on stage. Like, I'll be completely honest about it, in that I get to the other side of the evening and it's like, we made it. And then I'll be like, wait, did I even ask them that? Or did I say that? Or how did that come across? Because I'm realizing I just said something that I didn't even think I was saying. But the presence of it is the idea of being able to hold myself and hold the space for the speakers and those that are involved in it, to just like, okay, we're gonna focus into this moment and I'm gonna try to think of this speaker on stage with me in front of 2,000 people as just having a conversation with anybody that I'm talking to. It's amazing what happens when you actually get up there and you're talking to somebody, because it does start to feel very conversational at some point. But I'm also a pretty emotional person, and if you've been at the dinner, you've like full on seen me bawl. And so there's something that can feel like, oh, how does that feel for people, or what does that put on them? But that's real, like that's me. And so that's gonna happen, and I don't shy away from that part, because I think it is real, and people like authenticity. And I would rather see somebody stand up there and feel like I got real emotion from them and saw them feel natural in it, than feel like they're so nervous about what they may or may not do when they're up there. So I try to live into that. It's not always the easiest. When you stand on that side wing, it's pretty nerve-wracking.
Yes, me before this every week. But yes, I completely agree. You really
it's
feel
like
it.
all sides of it starts to feel that way. Yeah,
absolutely. Felt very affirming, nonetheless. Just to kind of close this out, outside of your work as CEO, what brings you joy or inspiration? Are there any hobbies that you have, places or community moments in Lancaster that you know and can rely on to always recharge you?
I love the outdoor recreation here, so that is a big part that my husband and my kids and our friends, like, we'll go do outdoors things. We went kayaking one time across the Susquehanna, and it was quite the adventure. It got very windy, and we thought we were all going to topple out. So go on a non-windy day if you're going to do it. But I love live music. My husband is a musician. He's the bassist in a band, and so I love getting to see him do gigs. The kids sometimes can come to those. They sometimes can't. We have an amazing friend group. I am still very close friends with 5 of the girls that I went to high school with.
Awesome.
And so we routinely get together, and we're all at different kind of stages of parenthood and career and all these things. But that's really recharging for me, is spending time with people that I love. And none of them are like highly engaged in chamber or policy work. And so it's not what I have to spend a lot of time talking with them about. And so it's really kind of nice to have those moments with them. But I would say, yeah, anywhere that has live music, I'm probably pretty into that space.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Heather, for speaking with me today and with all of us. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, this was wonderful. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.